evening, everyone.
a casino.
Excuse me,
They were going to sue them.
I'm Michelle Burton, the director of the Equine Program. We're really glad to have you here tonight for our third and our final in our fall panel series. If you would do me a favor at this time, please silence your cell phones. Appreciate it. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment. I didn't get a chance to thank Mark last time. Mark's going to moderate our panel tonight. But I want to thank Mark and Horse Racing Nation for sponsoring these events with us. Leave it to one of our faculty members. But I want to thank Mark and HRN for their support throughout this. We're streaming this event live tonight, and if you miss anything or somebody says something and you want to go back and hold it against them later, Mark will have the replay up online as well. So I'm going to introduce Mark, and then I'm going to turn the panel over to him so you don't have to listen to my creaky voice. Mark's the co-founder and CEO of Horse Racing Nation and also Derby Wars. He's got over 25 years of horse racing, marketing, and management experience. He's held executive positions at Churchill Downs Incorporated, Harrah's, and UBET. And he launched horse racing startup Horse Racing Labs back in 2009. He's got a track record of innovation, and tonight we're going to talk about something that's very innovative in our industry. We're going to take a look at sports wagering, and can and will it exist with horse racing. So Mark, let me turn it over to you. Let's give these guys a warm round of applause.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. That was a really nice intro, and for all of us with Horse Racing Nation, we're thrilled to be part of the University of Louisville Speaker Series. This is the first one, and it's been excellent, so we hope it's the first of many, many more. We're thrilled to be here, and so we've got a great panel tonight, and what I thought I'd do is kick it off to each of them and give them a little introduction, and they can talk about the state of their state, so to speak, and also how racing fits in with this newfound sports wagering that's growing in all these states. And I think the one question that's on my mind when we talk about racing, and we talk about is sports wagering good for racing as it comes into a new state, I think that really means, I kind of break it down to about three different things. One, is it good for the facilities, the operators? Certainly in horse racing as an industry, having a strong, Ellis Park, Turfway Park, Hawthorne Racecourse, those are important to the industry of horse racing, and so for the operators to do well, that's important. Monmouth, of course, you're already doing very well. Also, the purses is a secondary benefit as well. And then the third benefit, I think, or benefit/detriment, is how does the impact of sports racing, sports wagering impact horse racing and betting and handle and the fans being pulled in one direction or another. So I think that's something that we'd like to talk about a little bit tonight. So first one, I'd kick it off with the veteran of sports wagering, Bill Knopf, as Monmouth Park started back in June of last year, so not quite a year and a half into sports wagering, but it makes you the veteran of the sports wagering industry as far as racing. And just to give you a little background, Bill, he's been at Monmouth Park for 21 years. He's the Vice President of Business Operations, in charge of pretty much everything, wagering, on-track, off-track betting facilities, advertising, sponsorship, marketing, and of course now sports wagering. So Bill is in every facet of wagering with Monmouth Park, and sports wagering as well as anybody in the racing industry. So could you give us a little bit of overview of where Monmouth is with sports wagering, where New Jersey is, and how is horse racing benefiting or not benefiting, or how does it relate to horse racing in your state?
Yep, happy to. Thank you, Mark. It's great to be here. I'm happy to come and talk about this exciting topic anytime. I love it. As Mark said, we've lived it very closely for the last year and a half. So for those not familiar, last June in 18, we opened our sports book at the track. We opened it in a brand new renovated sports bar called the William Hill Sports Bar, and we took one of our old mutual lines and renovated that was not being used as the main sports line. So we have 27 sports windows at our facility. It's been extremely successful. We see great crowds coming in day and night. Obviously, we have the live racing during the summertime to play off of that. Soon after that, the scope of New Jersey is ramped up for sports wagering facilities. So now there are 10 retail outlets for sports wagering in New Jersey. It's only casinos and racetracks are the only ones allowed to do it. So far, Meadowlands and Monmouth Freehold has not opened their sportsbook yet, but at some point they will. So there'll be another one. The other part, that's the retail part, so the facility part, but the other part is the mobile online part. The law states that each retail operator receives 3 what they call skins, which is basically websites or mobile platforms that you can do mobile sports betting off of it. So Monmouth, we already have our 3 skins filled. We have William Hill as one, we have Sugar House, which is Rush Street Interactive as the second, and we have a new one called The Score, which is a Canadian company that probably a lot of you are familiar with for sports scores. So those are our 3. Right now there are 17 mobile websites in New Jersey, so it's a pretty tight space. It's a busy space. We expect more to come. It's very competitive, but as you may have read in the headlines, New Jersey is doing some pretty serious sports wagering. Comparatively to Las Vegas, I think we've beaten them the last few months. So there's a lot of money there, so I expect more operators to keep coming in. But for us, for Monmouth, and this is all reported public facts on the Division of Gaming Enforcement's website, we have won, and sports betting goes by win as opposed to takeout in horse racing. The win is how much we literally win from the bettors, or its another name is the hold. The hold was $5 million since January 1 for us on retail, and $12 million on our mobile. Obviously, you still have to pay an exorbitant amount of expenses that come with it, but we're very happy with the amount of money that's been added to not only our purses, but our operations at the racetrack. We've added to our facility, we've put up a 75-foot video wall for the fans to enjoy and watch. We want them coming into our facility. We are constantly trying to cross over racing and sports. We're a racetrack. We're always going to be a racetrack. We're actually run by a horsemen's group. For those who are not familiar with Monmouth, the New Jersey Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association runs our facility. So we're always going to be a racetrack. Sports is a component that we want to take and enhance and cross over to both bettors, sports bettors, teaching them horse racing and vice versa. Some of the ways that we've already done that in our facility is we always have horse racing up in the sports book. So while the Notre Dame-Ohio State game may have the center stage, right next to it will be Belmont Park or Gulfstream or Santa Anita or Churchill, whomever, one of the big tracks that's running. There's a lot of downtime in games. We feel that, and we feel and have seen bettors go up to those windows when there's breaks. So our handle, since we did not, our simulcast handle, since we opened sports betting, jumped 16 to 20% in our building on racing since we've had sports. So we know that it's effective. It can go up. Some of the other ways that we have tried to incorporate horse and sports is through unique wagers. We've only done it really on Haskell Day, our big day, and for those as a refresher, Haskell Day was a little weird this year because we had to, because of the heat, cancel some of our card and we had to run it later. But some of the unique bets that we did this year was who was going to have a higher total, Paco Lopez exacta finishes or the Yankees run total that night. Pretty fun bet. Unfortunately, we had to take the bet off because we canceled 6 races, but Paco, I think he still finished in quite a few exactas, but the Yankees had 11 runs that night, that's going to be a tough one to beat. We had Joe Bravo, over or under wins for the day, plus 1.5. So, and probably the most unique one we had was the saddle towel over under. So we had 65.5. If you added all the winners on our typical 14 race card on the saddle towels, is it going to be over or under 65.5? So if you're a numbers person, you can have fun with that. But these are just some of the innovative ways that we're trying to get bettors engaged in racing. and sports, and all those bets are only offered through the sports book, so it's completely separate pari-mutuel. We have not seen any type of dip in our pari-mutuel handle. We have increased in our live racing season this year, even though there's a lot of factors that go into a live season, so we'd like to see that. We don't see a cannibalization occurring. And we will look forward to the future of trying to increase that. We are definitely going to be very proactive with fixed odds wagering in the future, which will be through our sports book. So not just on big days, which people are more familiar with it, but we will look to do fixed odds on every racing day at Monmouth. And that'll probably primarily be win in place, nothing to do with exactas, but we feel that the sports bettor, which is a larger, wider, younger, affluent audience, wants to see horse racing as they see sports. They want to bet and see how much they're going to win on that ticket. If you've never made a sports bet before, if you bet $10 on the Yankees, it'll show you exactly how much you're going to win. So obviously pari-mutuel does not have that capability. We may bet a horse at 2-1 in the gate, and as soon as the gate breaks, he's 3-5. And to explain that to a sports bettor is difficult. So we will push for fixed odds and continuing to get as creative as possible in the future on sports wagering.
That's great. And Bill, what's the impact to purses in a percentage or in like a daily amount?
It is tough to tell. There is a portion of our purses that is actually in our subsidy bill that calls out that has to go to purses, and it is broken up. Harness and thoroughbreds are different in that aspect. So the Horsemen's Group go to the tracks and make deals at the sports books, but it's probably in the neighborhood. It's probably $1 million, if I said right now, and I'm sure that will grow as sports books grow and sports betting grows.
That's great. For Monmouth, what do you see the biggest benefit of sports betting? Is it revenue to the facility? Is it purses? Is it foot traffic and crossover, or is it a combination?
I think it's all the above. Obviously, we like the financial aspect of it. To plug, Monmouth is, we don't have a casino, so we were a struggling racetrack to try to remain a major, track in this country, and so this has really helped plug holes for us, and allowed us to maybe put some capital improvement back into the facility. We certainly have already seen it on the sportsbook side. I forgot to mention, we will also be planning, hopefully by end of next year, a new sportsbook facility that connects to our simulcasting facility in our grandstand, but it will be brand new, and we're going to put a heavy food and beverage focus on that, because we see that these bettors, the sports bettors, are here for a long time. They want to, they're obviously going to eat, drink, and they've got to have good food and beverage. But to go back to your question, the foot traffic has helped tremendously. It gives life to a building. Obviously, that also gives us more opportunity for them to cross over. Once we get them in our building, it's much tougher for a mobile person, I believe, to cross over the way it's structured right now, because it's two separate platforms. A horse bettor in New Jersey has to go to 4njbets.com to bet. That's the only site in New Jersey. But if you want to go to sports now, you got to go to a different app. And we don't feel like that is an easy transition. In a perfect world, there would be a horse icon right next to the football icon on the sports betting app.
Right.
Now I want to bet horses, and it comes right up. And of course, one wallet would make it easier as well.
Right, definitely. Well, that's interesting. And New Jersey's definitely got some interesting wrinkles and rules in the way things have been going there, both in racing and casino and now sports. So next, let's go to Illinois, and we're lucky to have with us John Walsh, who is the Assistant General Manager of Hawthorne Racecourse. And John has been at Hawthorne, I think, forever, but he says it was '02 when he started there. And John's over all pari-mutuel and sports, and pretty much everything that's coming through the wagering component. And Illinois is sort of the new kid on the block, having passed sports this summer. So, John, why don't you give us an update where things are at and what's Hawthorne's plans going forward?
Thanks, Mark. Hawthorne is kind of like Monmouth. We have been struggling to keep the stature that we've always had with, no gaming, no sports betting. So, luckily, somehow, our Governor Pritzker got to push through a casino and sports betting for us. So from our point of view, the sports betting was something we thought for sure was going to happen, and then the casino is icing on the cake. So what we anticipate for us with horse racing is we'll switch our days that we're racing. Right now, we never race on Sundays because there's football. Well, now we're going to have a sports book. You want to race on Sundays. You want to get all those people who are going to come for football, 2,000-3,000 we think, because Indiana has it right now. And Indiana is packed with Chicago people going to their sports book. So as soon as we're live, we'll race on Sundays. We'll have all these people looking at horse racing. We'll put it up in the sports book, at halftime when they're showing all the, guys talking. We'll put the races up. We'll get people interested. And like you said, there'll be people who are going, oh, there's horse racing. They'll go up and make a bet, because if you can bet on sports, you can probably bet on horses. I mean, it's the same thing. You're using your brain, you're looking at statistics, and one of them you get 9-1, the other one you get even odds. So I think it'll be good for us to be able to move people from sports betting to horse racing, and that, people who bet horses probably bet sports already, even though it might not be legal. Excuse me. So we partnered with a company called PointsBet, and they've got a nice app. They're very good with sports betting. They're in New Jersey. They're in Iowa. I believe they're starting in Indiana at the beginning of the year. They'll be in Colorado. So we're using a person who's knowledgeable, who's going to help us with that. And all the people who are in their management group own horses in Australia. So they're going to have the same goals that we have, which is promote horse racing, which they love, and also do well in sports betting. Unfortunately, even though the law passed in June, we're still waiting on rules and regulations, but our gaming board wants to make sure when they're done with this, it's going to be something that they don't have to go back and fix. They're looking at all the other jurisdictions and make sure that, okay, we see what's working, we see what's not working. There's things in our bill that aren't in anybody else's bill. If you're at Wrigley Field can have their own sports book. That's odd. That's nothing else in the country's like that. But I think it's pretty cool. I mean, because people go to the game, will be sitting there going, hey, well, I'll bet on sports. Once they bet someplace, then they start betting on other things, and you can, get them to your place at some point and look at your horses. I think for us, our biggest advantage is we're going to be the only major metropolitan area with a casino, sports book, and racetrack all in one location. There's no other place in the whole country like that. So I think Hawthorne is going to be doing very, very well in the future, and once we build this, people will come. So
Yeah,
that's where we are in Illinois.
That's really exciting. And so what specifically does this mean for racing in Illinois and racing at Hawthorne?
So what it does do is it gets more bodies in the seats, because they'll be there for sports. Purses, well, with the casino, it's much larger. So our purses, just from the casino, we're guessing will probably go up between 25 and 30 million a year, which is split between thoroughbreds and harness right now. For the sports betting, there's nothing in the law that anything goes to horse racing, but like I said, our group PointsBet's very much into horse racing, so I'm guessing we'll do some races called the PointsBet Illinois Derby. We'll bring back stakes races that we wouldn't really have, and we'll get people more, oh, PointsBet, they're promoting this, they got sports betting, horse racing. It'll all just be a circle that keeps feeding itself. That's what we're looking for. And it also just keeps us going in Illinois. It was such a downward spiral we were in. We were, probably running for 50, 75 million a year maybe 10 years ago, and now the whole state's probably running for 20. So it's something that this has turned everything around, and it's great for all of us. I'm excited, but I'm just hiding it from you guys.
Well, you guys have only been working for casino, slots, or sports for, a couple decades there?
Yes, at least 20 years.
So it's great couldn't believe it when it actually came through, right?
No, we still don't believe it.
So, well, thanks, John. And batting cleanup for us is Kentucky Representative Adam Koenig. Representative Koenig was elected to the Kentucky House of Representatives in November 2006. He's the chairman of the Licensing, Occupations, and Administrative Regulations Committee, and serves on the Banking and Insurance, Local Government, and Small Business and IT committees, and the Budget Review Subcommittee on Personnel, Public Retirement, and Finance. And we're thrilled to have him with us tonight as he has sponsored a sports wagering bill in Kentucky that he can tell us more about. I believe it came up last year and had some good support, but we've got some better hopes this year.
Yes, we do, and thank you for University of Louisville Equine Program for having me, and I'm a Derby Wars customer, just so you know. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to pass this bill next year. Earlier this year in our session, I had the bill, and we have this quirk in Kentucky where in short off-year sessions it takes a higher threshold of votes for anything that would generate revenue. And so this year, with your basic majority plus one, we are confident that we should be able to have the votes going forward. And a lot of the bill that I drafted is based upon what New Jersey did. I mean, they're the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. If you just hear about the revenue, you can see it. I think they went all in and did it right. And so the way my bill is structured is you can go to one of the tracks, and when I say tracks, I mean horse tracks as well as the Kentucky Speedway, and place a wager. Also, you can go to one of those tracks, download their app, use it anywhere in the state. And so we've just like New Jersey has, we have bifurcated tax rates. You pay a lower tax rate if you go on track, and a higher tax rate if you do the mobile, and hopefully that brings more people into the track. It gives the track the ability to give you more perks, encourage you to come in and do it and be exposed to racing. Now, I think there's probably fewer people in Kentucky that haven't been exposed to racing as opposed to New Jersey, but there's a few holdouts, and by gosh, we're going to try to get them in and expose them to what's going on at our racetracks throughout Kentucky. And we've got a lot of buy-in from the racetracks. Obviously, Keeneland has been a great partner. They've kind of led the way, and we appreciate that. So there's a lot of hopes, and we can talk about the results of this election eventually, if you like, its effects on it. But for me, there's a lot of motivations to it. Obviously, we want to help our signature industry. I think it's in good shape given the historical horse racing machines and the purse increases. Certainly, the purchase of Turfway in northern Kentucky, 5 minutes from my house, is a positive step to keep a year-round circuit here in Kentucky. And I can tell you that the folks in northern Kentucky, where I'm from, they've been eagerly anticipating the opportunity to do some sort of expanded gambling in northern Kentucky, and with the historical horse racing machines that will be put in a Turfway, I think they will be very positive, and I think the place will be flooded, frankly, with people. And if we can add sports wagering to that, not just here but elsewhere, I think it'll increase it even more. And I think some of what New Jersey has shown is that in a mature gaming market, one doesn't have to steal from the other. I think that from what I've heard, Derby City Gaming here in Louisville really has had very little impact on Horseshoe across the river. So I think in northern Kentucky there'll be plenty of people who want to go. I don't think sports wagering is going to be a negative, and the numbers in New Jersey bear that out. I think it'll be a positive for the tracks, and I just think it's something you should be able to do. If anybody thinks that it's not going on in their area, no matter what county you're in, whether it's urban Jefferson County or rural Webster County, it's happening in every part of this state, in every part of this country, whether it's legal or not. And I think it's important that we make sure that it's done legally, that it's done in a regulated, intelligent manner to make sure that the public is protected. Because when they go on download the mobile app from Antigua or wherever else, Gibraltar, wherever else these places are taking bets, you may get your money back if you win, you may not. There's no telling. And the bookie, if they want you to come back, they'll give you your money if you win, but chances are they're going to keep it because they know you're going to bet more. So, I'm pretty sure in New Jersey they don't extend credit like bookies do. And I think that makes it safer for everybody. So that's what I'm interested in, is making sure it's safe, making sure it's well regulated. It's something that people can do if they want, and hopefully if it generates some additional revenue for the state, which it will, then that's even better bonus.
That's great. And you alluded to the recent election with a new governor coming in.
Yes.
How does that have potential to help or hurt the sports wagering bill?
Well, it has potential to do both. The governor-elect Bashir has made it clear that he's for expanded gaming of all sorts, including sports wagering, also including casinos. Now, I've been in the legislature 13 years. I'm for casinos myself. However, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. I think if we work together, and I think I've literally met the governor-elect once, and it was long enough to say, "Hi, my name's Adam Koenig," and that was it. So hopefully I'll have the opportunity to talk with him, and maybe he's listening here tonight, watching on the streaming service. But I think it's important that we work together to get this across the finish line, make this happen. And I think that'll be a good step forward. It would be the most comprehensive change in gaming law in Kentucky since we implemented the lottery, I think in '87 or '88. So it'll be a pretty big deal. There'll be a lot of people who can take credit and take this as a big advancement forward. And I mean, look, in Northern Kentucky, we're going to have a building with a bunch of historical horse racing machines. If we have a sports book, and by the way, my bill also has online poker in it, then, all of a sudden, you've got a lot of the components of a casino. And when that seeps into the public consciousness, it's hopefully not too much of a jump to get some blackjack tables and some craps tables, and boom, we're there. So I hope to work with him to get everybody a win in this regard. I'm afraid that if insists on the whole ball of wax, that the issues will get conflated, and some folks who want to vote for it, maybe in the rural areas where it might be a difficult vote for them, if they start getting flooded with no casinos, no expanded gaming, that would cost us some votes, because it's hard to go home and say, well, I wasn't casinos, I just voted for sports wagering. For some people, that's difficult to explain. So let's take the win while we can.
That's interesting, and it makes sense in politics. So you guys have worked hard to get within sight of the finish line last year, so wanted to keep that as the target. Now, I know as far as horse racing, you've been a longtime supporter of horse racing. What is the proposed horse racing component of the bill?
Well, obviously, it is located at the tracks, so that gives them obviously a decided advantage. I stole New Jersey's tax rate, except there's an additional 0.5% on in-person wagers that would go to the thoroughbred and harness development funds. So that would augment purses, but I think it would pale in comparison to obviously the changes we've seen over the last few years with the historical horse racing machines. But obviously I think we will have more success in driving up handle from bringing people in rather than that additional tax rate.
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, Kentucky racing's seen a lot of things going in the right direction in the last few years. It'd be great to add one more thing.
Yes.
In that direction. So, okay. So talking about some, more global issues, and Bill kind of started to hit on with fixed odds. You see that as an important innovation to sort of bring into racing that the sports bettors are frankly used to. Now, are you talking about just on track, or would you, through your online partners, offer that online as well?
So we would love to offer it online as well. It's just a wider audience that it's exposed to. You know, it's much more common in Europe and Australia to do fixed odds and sports together. It's obviously we don't even have fixed odds and sports is just proliferating now in the U.S. So, but it's going to take a little time. Hopefully, we'll get it up and running by the time Monmouth rolls around next year to try to have the sports betting platforms integrated with a fixed odds. Fixed odds takes a lot of work. For somebody to pay attention and constantly update the odds at a track on, you know, race 3 on a Friday afternoon at Monmouth, you know, without getting hurt, because fixed odds is run like the sports bet. You can lose. You know, I look at the sportsbook revenues every day, and in the long haul you make money, but you can lose on a day. And I've seen sportsbooks in New Jersey have already posted a couple of losses for months in a month. So you have to be very careful that you're not opening yourselves up to something that, you know, you're going to lose on. But to do it right would be a great service to the bettors, because it drives volume. They can get the odds that they want. If the odds shift, they can then arbitrage and try to middle it. And at the same time, you still have pari-mutuel that you can even play off of pari-mutuel. So we really want to do it every day at Monmouth, and online and retail. And then hopefully we'll get other tracks to do it as well. Currently in New Jersey, we're the only state in the U.S. that actually does exchange wagering. So that is a form of fixed odds wagering where you bet a horse and you get the price that is matched, albeit someone else, as opposed to a sports book or a track, is matching that price. A person is matching it as opposed to us. So there are some limitations that if a bet doesn't get matched, it doesn't go through. But on the exchange platform, besides Monmouth, we do have a handful of tracks right now. The Penn Gaming tracks are on it. So hopefully some of these tracks that are already on the exchange will allow us to do fixed odds wagering as well, if it's allowed in the States.
Yeah, it's definitely a great innovation for the U.S. As we know, it's really popular in overseas, and the ability to lock in your odds, potentially even shop prices between different offerings. You could also, you could lock in a horse at 5 to 1, and his odds could go down on the pari-mutuel, and you feel great that you locked in a better price. Of course, it can work both directions, but definitely a great innovation. John, is that being foreseen at all in Illinois, or where does fixed odds come in?
Well, our partner does do a lot of that in Australia, and from our perspective, our harness racing, we go into Australia, and more money goes into the fixed odds pools than the pari-mutuel pools. Now, I don't know how they know what to set our odds at, because it's harness racing in Illinois, but somehow somebody's doing that. So fixed odds is something that in the future, it won't be this year, it might not even be in 2 years, we're just getting started, but it's something we're interested in, because like you said, you look at a price, you see a horse, you go, oh, he's 3 to 1, great, I'm gonna bet him. Next thing you know, he's 2 to 5, and you're like, that was stupid, why'd I bet him? You know, sometimes it goes the other way, but very rarely. So I think fixed odds is something that people understand, because I'm getting the price that like you go to the store, you buy something, it's $3, you get to the counter, they say, I'm sorry, that's $12. Go, that's not the way it should work. So I think fixed odds is something we all should be looking for in the industry.
Yeah, and I think the thing too with fixed odds versus pari-mutuel is each has its strengths and weaknesses. So, if you're betting a trifecta or superfecta, the Breeders' Cup or a big field, that's exciting to have a $1,000 or whatever, trifecta. You're not going to get that in fixed odds, or it's not really a great way as an operator to offer that. But to lock in on your horse at 4 to 1 or whatever that price is great in fixed odds, and pari-mutuel can't really do that for you. John, what about, so we didn't mention ADW in Illinois, so you have an ADW partner. Will PointsBet as your wagering partner, can you offer them an ADW license? How does that work?
We could, if they had pari-mutuel wagering, which right now they don't, but we can have, in Illinois, we can have 20 partners. Right now we have Naira Bets, Express Bet, and we also run our own Club Hawthorne. So we have 3, and we could have as many as we want, but it's just, is there enough volume to have all that? But it's something I've talked to them about, but right now they don't have a pari-mutuel model. It's all fixed odds.
But Hawthorne would be allowed to offer fixed odds on horse racing online through potential partners, or?
Not in Illinois, no. It'd have to be like we do in Australia, where we're just selling our signal and they do it themselves.
And in Kentucky, Representative Koenig, is fixed odds a part of the bill, or where is that?
It was not a part of the bill this year. We had Patrick Cummings from the Thoroughbred Idea Foundation come in, talk over the interim to my committee about fixed odds wagering. He makes a good case. It was the idea of Senator Damon Thayer, who I think everybody here probably knows in the horse racing industry. And it's something I would like to see done as someone who is one of those people that bets a horse at 7-1 and then they leave the gate at 7-2 and it drives you nuts. But I'm not sure it's an idea that's ready to hatch yet. There's a lot on the back side of where the money goes and who it goes to that I'm not that knowledgeable on yet, and that's going to be a heavy lift. It's, will it mess with the parimutuel nature, and does that bring up issues with constitutionality in Kentucky, and do we want to, so there's just a lot of moving components, and, it may be a great idea for the future. I don't know that we're going to be able to get it done, but I'm sure Senator Thayer, if he's watching, will let me know if he thinks I'm right or not shortly as I get out of here. So
Maybe we can get New Jersey to pilot it first, right?
exactly, I like it.
Let us try.
Yeah, that sounds great. What about takeout? I wanted to ask each of you about takeout. In horse racing, we're dealing with parimutuel win takeout might be 16, 18%, sometimes a little more. Blended takeout with the exotic wagers can run into 22, 23%. Yet if you're just betting a sports game straight up, you're dealing with takeout less than 10%. Bill, you have the most experience in terms of you were talking about the state's net win and Monmouth's net win, so that gives a net takeout. But to the average player just betting on a sports game, what is the takeout, and how does that relate to horse racing?
Yeah, it's definitely lower. It does vary. The one thing I've learned is there's really a lot more bets out there than most people ever realize that are on sports bets. Your traditional bet is you go up and you put 11 to win 10, so 10%, or somebody gets paid, so it's 5 to us on that bet. That's the low end of our take. But when you get into like horse racing, when you start betting pick sixes or pick fives or fours, or you can get up into the 20% on takeout range. You can get there is no designated takeout for that, but it is much higher. The win is probably closer to the 15 to 20% range for parlay bets, and there are a lot of different types of bets. But also in sports, you have the ability to actually move the line. We have teasers lines where you can go up and say the Yankees are favored by 1 run tonight, but the other opposite is you can get the Yankees, giving +3 runs. So there's all different reverse lines, and there's first half lines, and there's in-play wagering now, which is good and growing. In Vegas, in-play wagering of sporting events, according to William Hill, is about 30%. We're not up to that margin yet, but we're probably 15 to 20, and it's growing quickly. So that is another form of really quick hitting. You're watching a tennis match, and I don't mean like, I should probably back up and say, I don't mean it like who's going to win the next point. It's more along the lines of who's going to win the set, or is there going to be a scoring drive on the Falcons on this play? And so when you really blend all of that together, it's hard to determine a specific takeout. But as you mentioned, the take for horse racing, for sports, is in the 5 to 9% range when it's all said and done.
Okay. And have you seen any, at this point though, horse racing bettors have kind of stayed in their camp, and your handle stayed pretty consistent, and sports bettors have grown, and you've seen some crossover, but there's not been a big shift in any way.
It's not been a major shift, but the biggest shift we've seen is our nighttime simulcasting handle, which jumped over 20% once we implemented sports betting last year in the fall. That was primarily bodies are in the building, they're betting sports, they're watching it, they're hanging out, and now they're betting racing. That was the biggest segment. As I said, live is very tough to determine our live racing days because we do fortunately still get very large crowds, 10,000 people, and there's not a lot of sports betting at that time of year. This time of year, obviously, we have limited simulcasting, Breeders' Cup's over, and football is packed. And so, yes, you could still bet some of those other signals, and those took a jump from when we didn't have sports wagering, but year to year now, it's pretty flat with sports wagering. It's not going down, which I think is a good thing because, as I said, 1 year ago there were probably 3 mobile operators in New Jersey, and now there's 17. But our handle has not gone down on our site.
Wow, that's terrific. And John, in Illinois, I guess the takeout's probably similar as Bill answered, but there's been a lot of talk about the tax in Illinois. Could you explain the taxes in Illinois, and is it burdensome that somebody might not want to operate in Illinois, or?
Well, sports betting in Illinois, the tax is 15% right now. And then if you're in Cook County, it's 17%. I think it's a little high, but I don't think there's anyone who's not going to operate. I haven't heard FanDuel, DraftKings, Sugar House, they're definitely operating. Churchill will be operating. It's a little higher than they want, but I think a lot of the in-game betting, when you look at the takeouts on that, I mean, that's sometimes 25, 30%. So those, they say, okay, well, 15% tax is not the end of the world because there is a higher takeout. Would we rather have it lower? Yes. And will it cost more in the long run? Probably. But, to start with, we're glad to start it. They actually had a 20% to start with, so cutting down to 15 is better. And maybe in a couple of years, we'll talk them down to a reasonable rate. We hope.
No, that makes sense. And then Representative Koenig, as far as in Kentucky, I mean, everything is sort of, in the future. But what about projections for the state's revenues from sports wagering? Obviously, we're always looking for more money in Kentucky. So
Sure. Well, Keeneland commissioned a study, and the range was, I believe, 20 to 45 million. I've kind of forgotten the top end because it doesn't matter anymore. But 20 million was if every state around us legalized it, and the 45 was if no state around us legalized it. Well, Indiana got there, Illinois got there, West Virginia already has it, and much to everyone's surprise, Tennessee legalized it. This is a state where you can't even play bingo legally. And it's not up and running yet, but you're going to be able to wager on sports in Tennessee before long. So I'm just going with the 20 million, and better to underpromise and overdeliver. But that's what we're looking at. But people need to understand that it will vary, right? I mean, you said you've had losing months, and I've heard the story of Rhode Island that I think has one sports book. And they opened it, a little bit before the Super Bowl, and everyone in Rhode Island went and bet on the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Right. Well, it's only a tough year if the Patriots win and if they win and cover. If the Patriots lose, then all of a sudden Rhode Island is the poster child of look how much money you can make. So people need to be wary of the fact that it'll. Over time it will be all right, but the first year if it comes in low, doesn't mean the end of the world, doesn't mean the estimates were wrong.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, but definitely every bit helps coming into the state's coffers when it's needed. You mentioned the competitive landscape. Indiana in October took in over 90 million sports wagers. Nationally, Colorado just passed sports wagering last week through a referendum. Counting tribal and other sports wagering, according to the Legal Sports Report, that's the 19th state to pass sports wagering. So does it help a little bit in terms of getting the bill passed in Kentucky, as there's so much sports being passed around us nationally?
I would like to think so, but we have, what, 40-some states that have casinos? So that argument didn't work over the last decade in Frankfurt. So, but I like to think so, and you know, even the most ardent opponent in the House, I've talked to a couple of them, and you know, they don't like it. This isn't going to change their vote. But I ask them, look, how many calls would it take for you to find a bookie? And they, well, I would never do that. Okay, that doesn't answer my question. How many calls would it take you to find a bookie? And both of them thought about it, and they said, 2. You know, they know what's going on, and now that it's surrounding us, you know, it is, and you know, one thing in the bill that, you know, some first chunk of money goes to regulation, the second chunk, a little bit goes to addiction prevention. The rest of it goes to our retirement hole, which is, depending on who you listen to, between $40 and $60 billion. So we're not going to fill that hole with sports wagering, but you know, it's a little dirt we can throw into that hole to start filling it up. So that is appealing to a lot of people, and you know, especially the folks. I'm a Republican, and we're working with the Democrats as much as I can. And I want to give a shout out to Representative Al Gentry, who's a Louisville state representative, and he's my co-sponsor, and he's been a great partner to work with. And you know, that's, you know, like I said earlier, I'm interested in making it legal and allowing people to do it in a way that's safe and regulated. A lot of other folks are interested in the revenue, and that's okay too, as long as they're on my side.
There you go. Well, great. We just got a few minutes left, so Sean, we want to open it up to questions from the audience.
Sure. I've got the microphone here. If you've got a question, let's use the mic because we are streaming it and we want to get it recorded. So who has a question for this panel? I know Michelle does. Terry. Yeah, I know you do. We'll get back to you.
I'd like to ask, because a lot of people, I think, problem with expanded gaming a lot of times is people that become addicted. Are there anything in your all's bills that have passed, or the bill that you have that's coming up to the Kentucky General Assembly that has any of the tax money going to help people with gambling addictions?
I believe I did mention that mine has, I think 5%. I think it is. Don't quote me on that, but to that end, and I think that's you know, a responsible thing for us to do. You know, because people putting your head in the sand if you think it doesn't cause issues, although those people already have issues because we have gaming surrounding many parts of the state, and no revenue to help with that. So.
In New Jersey, I don't know the percentage. It absolutely has a percentage that is allocated to it. On the operations side, every piece of signage, this is in the law, every piece of signage that we post up in our facility, that we put out in advertising, put on social media, actually has to have a responsible gaming message. As well as the Division of Gaming Enforcement is extremely active with the self-exclusion list. So there are thousands of people who have self-excluded themselves from gambling at a casino or a racetrack. And I can tell you, now that I'm the point person, I receive an email every day with an updated list. And we've got, for folks that's mobile and retail, and for the folks who would attend on a retail who excluded themselves, we get photos of them. And our surveillance department actually had to be trained to identify folks, because if they exclude themselves, we don't want them in the casino. We don't want them going down that path again. And I can tell you, we found people who did. So everybody wants the same message going out there with that.
And that's the same thing for Illinois. We have self-exclusion, and there's some percentage of everything that goes through with this new law that goes into helping people who have problems. So, yeah, we have exactly the same thing as New Jersey has.
You knew I'd have a question. wanted to bring up a couple points because I hear tossed around in many places in the U.S. this idea of having fixed odds on horse racing, and I'm all for it. That's the first thing. But a couple points that need to be discussed anytime we talk about fixed odds in horse racing in America is, as an industry, not as a state, but as an industry, we really need to get the economic structure figured out how fixed odds is going to work in America. And the reason being is, while both the UK and Australia, more wagering on horse racing is on the fixed odds platform than on the pari-mutuel, they're very different. In the UK, for instance, very little money goes back to horse racing, nil. And in Australia, they have something called race fields legislation that requires the bookmaker to pay a certain percentage back to purses. So fixed odds are wildly popular in both places, but looking at the economic structure of horse racing is the most important side. When you start talking about how are we going to do this in America, you're talking about Kentucky, I'm looking at other states. We have something, as you all are aware of, the Interstate Horse Racing Act, which allowed us to do simulcasting. That protects, all betting on horse racing, where it requires that anyone taking a wager on a horse race interstate needs to have consent of the host and the horsemen of that host racetrack, as well as the guest. Unlike other sports where we've seen integrity fees and it has been voted down in many states, horse racing has a mechanism in the United States to make sure that horse racing is protected with some kind of negotiated fee, whatever's negotiated between the parties. And I think just looking at how that's going to work, does that mean we look at this from a sports betting standpoint? Innately, horse racing is a sport. Do we really need to add that to the legislation? Or do we look at it from a racing commission status? Because not every state is going to have sports wagering at a racetrack. Heaven forbid, there will be states that will not have it, and how do those groups compete? You wouldn't want to have a state where, say, a racetrack gets blanked, and the only people that can do fixed odds on horse racing is a sports book somewhere else. So we need to look at both the sports wagering legislation, as well as the racing commission legislation, and maybe looking to change some of the rules so that we could do fixed odds on horse racing from the sports book. We could do it at a racetrack, we could do it at OTB, we could do it at APW, and then we start getting into items where horse racing is very unique. We could potentially even take fixed odds across state lines with the Interstate Horse Racing Act, where sports cannot do that with the Wire Act. So I've taken us down a little bit of a rabbit hole, which those who know me know I will do this, but I just felt like as we talk about it, it seems so easy. Well, let's have fixed odds. I think it's great. It's a much more complicated topic, and horse racing needs to get that right here in America for it to be beneficial. So you can comment to it if there wasn't a question.
I can comment, but I agree with you 100%, and we're for that model on the Interstate Horse Racing Act. We feel that the track, the commissions, everybody's got to have the same approvals in place. We've already been notified that should we apply to, say, take someone's fixed odds, say Belmont, or let's say Breeders' Cup, we didn't, but let's say Breeders' Cup allowed us to take fixed odds. The Division of Gaming, who regulates sports in New Jersey, would get the approval of the Racing Commission first before authorizing that. So they would work together, but we agree 100% with that model.
It's all over the board from state to state.
Hi, I'm Bill Furco. I'm a commissioner for the Kentucky Horse Park, and Governor-elect Brashear's mother was a previous commissioner for the horse park. And we have steeplechase racing, Rolex, et cetera, at the horse park. I was thinking that perhaps if we enable sports wagering on steeplechase racing and on Rolex at the horse park, maybe Governor Brashear might be inclined to support something like that and throw it into the mix.
Look, when I tell people I'm going to the track, I usually say, they're running horses in circles in Lexington, and I can bet on them, so I'm going to go. Having grown up in a suburb, I horses are beautiful animals, but if they're running around and I can't bet on them, it's not of interest to me. And so I would be for that in concept. Again, making fixed odds wagering, on horse racing in general brings up legal issues that I'm not sure I'm ready to tackle quite yet. I only have limited bandwidth being, a part-time legislator, as we say, the part of the time we're not asleep. So, but yes, I like this idea.
Other questions from this panel?
Do you have any limits on wagers? I think of Mattress Mac and wagers you made on the World Series. And or the second part of that is, do you know what the average wager made?
What's that?
Mattress Mac wager.
So for those not familiar, we had Mattress Mac, who is he's a horse owner, and he owns GalleryFurniture.com, and he does a promotion every year where if the Astros win the World Series, then everybody who bought a mattress set 3,000 or up gets it for free. So he offset when the Astros looked like they were the winner. He started to lay off his bets by traveling around to sportsbooks. So we flew into New Jersey, and he did place wagers with us, and we do not have a cap. So the only cap is if our sportsbook decides to take the action. There is no, and we do inform the division of gaming of that size of wager. It's public knowledge. So he placed about 800,000 with us. He placed another 2 million, I think, with the Meadowlands. So we won one and lost one on him. They won the big one because the Astros did not win the World Series. He ended up flying back in. He actually flew into Teterboro Airport, so he was physically in the state of New Jersey because they geo-track you. And he made the bet online at the airport, and then he flew out. But we don't. So as long as the action is accepted, there are some occasions where a bet might not be accepted at the odds that are given. We may have to shift the odds. I'll give you an example. When we had the World Cup last year, when we offered it, somebody came in and wanted to bet 20,000 on the over of a Finland, Norway game, and that was just a very large amount on an odd game. And we didn't allow them to bet 20,000. We let them bet 10 at one price and move the price quite a bit, and they were turned off and didn't take the other half of it, but they were only able to take part of it. I do not have statistics yet on the average wager. And I don't want to guess. I mean, I can tell you by looking at a daily run, we do a lot more in sports wagering than horse pari-mutuel wagering in our facility. Probably about, this time of year it's about 10 times as much, but even when we're live racing, we do more sports wagering on a weekend. So.
Bill, when we're talking about that, just curious, how much, like, this time of year is football of the total wagering for you guys?
Dominant. It's
80-20 or more?
It's probably 80% between college and pro. College, Sundays are bigger, but there's less games. Saturday there's a lot of college football games, and then they're augmented by NBA is probably next, and NCAA, but you've got pro, and then you've got college football, and then you've got the NBA down here. It's the remaining sports are 20% this time of year, but then when the NFL ends, NCAA shoots right up and takes the NFL's place, so it balances out that part of the year. April is a fairly slow month. You've got baseball that starts, but you've got some other sports like the Masters is a really good one-off tournament and things like that. UFC actually has been a really unique one for us. Getting bodies in at 11 o'clock at night, and they're betting and they're eating and they're drinking and they're live. I mean, that's been a unique one.
Can I ask a question of my fellow folks up here? What are your all's rules in each state for in-state college teams? Are you able to wager on them?
No.
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 Okay.
No.
What are you thinking about, Bill?
Right now my bill has no, because that's the standard, basically. I think in Vegas and I should say Nevada and Mississippi, I think it's legal, but every other state, it's not. But that is what I get the most pushback on from people, because by God, they want to bet UK and U of L.
Yep.
I understand the financial part of it, that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, Vegas had it for a long time and then switched it. You couldn't bet a UNLV game for
Right.
a long time, and then
And there's a lot of people that would have lost a lot of money on UK basketball last night.
Yep.
Hard to follow that, but I have a question for you. New Jersey and Kentucky, neither one has an extensive OTB network. You mentioned Hawthorne specifically. What's gonna happen, or what are you allowed to do at your OTB network? And if you're allowed to take sports betting into the OTB network, has there been consideration to expand outside your general footprint right now into other parts of the state? Are you restricted? Talk a little bit about the OTB side of the equation, something that we don't have in Kentucky or New Jersey.
So we are allowed to have 3 of our OTBs have sports betting. Right now, we don't know what the rules involve. Can we move them? Can we have them at one place and then next year move them to another place? So we've chosen 3 OTBs that we have. They're on the north side of the state, the south side of Chicago, and then the west side. So it kind of makes a little diamond. So anybody in the area can come to one of our places and make bets. If they expanded it, of course, we'd go with all of our, we have up to 16 OTBs we can have, and right now we have 10. There's another one coming online, hopefully in mid-December on the south side. That'll be our 11th. But yeah, we'd love to have that at every place, but right now we're just gonna put it at our 3 busiest OTBs. But it's gonna be great for people to be able to go to a place where they're used to watching, racing on a Saturday, and they turn around, now they can watch all their NCAA games. They can bet on them. They don't have to worry about, calling their bookie, getting their bet in. They'll just collect right there, go bet on the horses, go back to the game. UFC, these places will be packed, so it's really gonna help.
Any other questions for this panel? No. All right, guys, let's give them a round of applause. Thanks to all of you guys for the support that you've given us through the Fall Speaker Series this year. We're gonna do it again next year. We've got a lot to live up to next year, but thanks to all the members for coming out and helping us out tonight, discussing what's going on in each of your states. And thanks to Mark and Horse Racing Nation for all they've done to help us put this on. So thank you again for coming, and we'll see you again soon.